All right. Hello. How's everyone doing today? Good. Excellent. And this is Idaho, right? Excellent. Just double checking, make sure I have the right score sheet in front of me. Well, nice to see you guys. Glad you were able to be here. My name is Jocelyn Broman. I am a We the People alumni who competed at nationals in 2006, which feels like several lifetimes ago. I'm also an attorney, and I currently work on Capitol Hill for Representative Don Young of Alaska.
My name is Evan Gessner. I'm a civil rights attorney in Lexington, South Carolina. This is my first year judging a national level We the People competition, though I've done it at the state level for 12 or 13 years. I'm very excited to be here and look forward to your presentation.
And I'm Francine Engel. I'm a political scientist and I focus on American constitutional development. And I also work with the Maryland Council for Civic and History Education.
And if you could introduce yourselves and your teacher as well.
Hello, I'm Aiden Gardner and I'm 11th grade and our teacher is Blake Godet.
Hi, I'm Samina Omar. I'm also a junior and our teacher is Blake Godet.
Hi, my name's Shannon Hendricks. I am also a junior and our teacher is the glorious Blake Godet.
Excellent. Thank you so much. As you guys probably have already figured out, we're doing question 2 today, but I will read it for the benefit of us all. John Adams wrote, "There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into 2 great parties, each arranged under its leader and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those ideas persisted in American political parties? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of a unified or divided government?" You may begin when ready.
Issues that contributed to the formation of the Federalist and Anti-Federalist political parties include sovereignty of the states, slavery, and voting for the president. Firstly, the Federalists favored a central government, while the Anti-Federalists favored more state sovereignty. The Federalist Papers communicated the benefits of a united nation and persuaded the need of a federal government to secure the liberty of a large republic. It also outlined that a weak central government would result in a weaker country susceptible to civil wars and invasion from foreign powers. Another contributor to the formation of the original political parties was the use of slaves within the nation. Southern states wanted slaves to be counted as a population for the purpose of representation in the House of Representatives. On the other hand, northern states wanted slaves to be counted as property and taxed. This led to the 3/5 Compromise, which stated that slaves would be counted as 3/5 of a free person for the purpose of taxation and representation. Although the Constitution amended the importation of slaves beginning in 1808, it did not restrict the continued use and ownership of slaves or the slave trade within the southern states. Finally, the Electoral College was created as a compromise to debate whether Congress or the people should elect the president. Alexander Hamilton wanted people who were, quote, most capable of analyzing the qualities and act under the circumstances, end quote, to select the president. Under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution, the Electoral College was born. The process of voting for the president, sovereignty of the states, and slavery all contributed to the formation of the Federalist and Anti-Federalist political parties.
The issues that created the political parties have persisted into the 2 very polarized political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. This has pushed Republicans to be more conservative while Democrats to be more liberal. The issues that form the parties being who to vote for president, the authority of states, and slavery. Although slavery was abolished in 1865, the inequalities facing people of color still continued for far too long. These inequalities were thrown into the public eye in May of 2020 with the murder of George Floyd. This was highly divisive in the federal government and created a division among the political parties. The issue of the sovereignty of the states still persists today, too. The Republicans want the states to have more authority than the federal government, while Democrats want the federal government to have more power. This manifests into the right to get an abortion. Republicans support the states' rights to decide whether or not to ban abortion instead of the federal government making that decision, while the Democrats support the federal government making that decision instead of the states. Lastly, the voting of the president is still an issue that polarizes our government. Republicans vote for Republican presidents and Democrats vote for Democratic presidents. The issues that first created the political parties perpetuate them to this day.
Whether a government is divided or unified, there will still be many advantages and disadvantages to both. One advantage of a unified government would be that passing bills are easier. According to the Niskasen Center, some of the pathways to passing a bill, take for example, broad support and steamroll, have increased by 29%. Another study showed that if a unified government, their success of their agenda is 57%. One upside to a divided government is not allowing one party to take over with their beliefs. Although it results in arguing sides, it creates more communication. If a bill, for example, is introduced in a unified government, it will be thought out. But in a divided government, this process can be taken to the next level. If one side doesn't agree, then they will have to compromise a lot to get through each stage of the government. All in all, both sides have their pros and cons, being more compromise and more successful movement of decisions throughout the government.
Great. So which one do you think is better? That the United States should have unified government or should it have divided government?
Personally, I believe that divided is better because it promotes more communication within the government, having to compromise. A lot of the topics like gun control, it has a lot of different opinions, and to keep a lot of the people happy, there's two different sides, which creates compromise, and nothing too drastic has really happened.
And comparing our divided government to unified governments such as Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan has one political party, but you have a lot of civil discourse and you have little parties underneath it, little radicalist parties that are trying to overthrow the major party. And I like our divided government because we don't have that as much.
I agree with both my teammates, and also it allows the citizens to have more voice in their community.
So what do we do when, like right now, where the Democrats have control of the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency? What does that mean, that the Republicans just should do nothing and let the Democrats do what they want to do, or should they try and work with them?
They still try and work with them, each party, because they still need to get votes through the House and the Senate of each side, making sure that they have enough. And
the Democrats won't have control over the House, the Senate, and the presidency for very long. We are just waiting until midterms. And I don't think the Republicans are going to sit there and do nothing because they want to be reelected. And if they're showing their constituents that they aren't doing anything, they're not going to get reelected. So they're going to try to do things.
Exactly. And what I was going to say is that checks and balances still keeps them in proportion, and the judicial branch makes sure that everything stays aligned, and it's a nonpartisan branch, so it kind of keeps things leveled out.
And also that whichever political party runs the House or the Senate, it's always constantly changing. So each party keeps fighting and for their own opinions and what they want done in this country.
Tell me, in a democratic system of government, are political parties inevitable?
Can you clarify that for us, please?
Yeah, so if you form a new government, are political parties inevitable? Meaning, are they gonna be there? Are they gonna happen one way or the other?
I do believe that political parties will be there no matter what. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on how the government or the country should be run. And not everyone is going to view the things the same way. And there's going to be tons of diversity within their thoughts.
And when the framers were creating our government, they were basing it off of the English political system. So if they were to argue that if political parties were not to come around, they were very naive in thinking that, because at the time, England had political parties.
Okay, so could you tell me, what is a faction? And then can you explain, is a faction the same thing as a political party, or is it different than a political party?
A faction is different from a political party because a faction is just people who have like-minded interests. So a political party, they are all under one interest, but there is diversity within there. So an example of this would be you have very far left Democrats who believe in more radical change and more progressive, while you have more right-leaning Democrats who are a bit less progressive and a bit less, just a bit less extreme.
So do you think that the country would be more democratic and less partisan if we had a president and a vice president that were from two different parties?
I don't think that it would make a country less democratic because a vice president doesn't hold very much power in compared to the president. And so it's kind of just like a helping hand for the president, which will help them with their party that the country decided to choose.
I disagree with my teammate because I believe that even though the vice president, the vice president provides the president more like interpretation of what maybe the different political party is trying to convey and what they're fighting for. And I feel like that the vice president could have a lot of influence on the president and how he makes his decisions.
I actually agree with Aiden. I think it would create more chaos because already the two political parties don't work very well with one another. And if you were to put both of them into positions of power, I think that there would still be a lot of chaos and a lot of controversy between the two, and less would get done. Also, there's only 4 years or 8 years that a president is within office. There is time for the president to change houses and change political parties.
Let's go back to the factions thing for just a second, or see where we can go on that. What are your opinions on how the factions within the Democrats and the Republicans are affecting the parties today?
I think that one way that the factions are affecting the parties is how how everyone sees that party. So say, for example, the extremists on the right side or even the left side, the general population will see those factions and start to believe that that's the whole idea of the big parties, the Democrat and Republican, and start to disassociate themselves with that party because of those factions.
I do think it's good that we have factions within political parties, because if everybody was to think the exact same, there wouldn't be new ideas or new challenges to be presented. So we need people who are a bit more extreme and a bit more moderate to help balance out the parties.
But wouldn't it be almost better if they would start making like smaller political parties so we'd have a multi-party system?
If we had a multi-party system, it'd be a lot harder for one of those parties to succeed. As we see in Israel, there's a lot of parties there. And for one party to win, it takes multiple times. Even last time, it took multiple elections for one of them to win. And so we could see that in America as well. Since we're a lot bigger country, it might take even longer for one of those to succeed throughout each stage.
I agree with Aiden. And I also feel like that during election time, it would be a very more chaotic process, and it wouldn't be organized like it is now.
We also see this in England. England has many different political parties, and those parties have formed alliances together. So really, there is no use for having that many little parties if they're just going to form alliances and become one big party.
So what is it about our system that really makes it so that we would have this two-party system?
Whenever the country was first founded, there wasn't two separate sides of the spectrum, and there were multiple. And I think one thing that created these two sides is, just like we stated, how it'll take having just two sides instead of 10 will be easier for people to differentiate which one they want to join and make it easier on the voting process. Instead of having 10 options, you only have two with multiple ideals within.
Time.
Excellent.
Yeah, let's recognize the students for their hard work today and their participation.
Yeah, great job. Well, this was fun. We've heard some stuff that we hadn't heard before. The international examples were great. So that's always fun to see how different countries are going to do different things. So you talked about Azerbaijan, you talked about Israel. I particularly liked a little comment of the English political system had political parties. So the founding fathers were naive if they thought they wouldn't show up again. So I liked that as well. One thing to just be aware of, like as you're talking about the international system, is to make sure that you're taking a step back and seeing how those are usually parliamentary systems and ours is a presidential or congressional system. So the power dynamics can be different and are different in how political parties can control different things. So while they're good examples to kind of see like how a multi-party system could work, it'd likely be very different in a congressional system. So as you guys are like thinking about that idea, just be aware of those kinds of checks and balances are different for the congressional system as they are for the parliamentary system. But overall, a great presentation. And you did a great job of answering your questions through the statement, and we could follow it all the way through. So that was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Great presentation, very well organized. You know, in an earlier presentation today, everybody's talking about a two-party system or a multi-party system. And I was just thinking to myself, I wonder if anybody's going to mention the single-party system. And so you're the first one to do it, and you might be the only ones to do it today. So good job. Yeah, I was thinking people are going to say what's good or bad about the two-party system, but I think we can all agree that a single-party system, while it might be efficient, it's really not what we want in this country. But again, great job.
Yeah, and I echo everything that the other judges have said here. Great job in the presentation and in the follow-up. And one of the things that I really liked that you said is when you asked about factions, one of you said that factions are a good thing, because usually we think of factions as a very negative thing. And you talked about how factions are actually a good thing because it makes different points of view come out. So people sort of coalesce around an idea, and then other factions come and try to compete with it. So what the competition between the factions really sort of helps with marketplace of ideas. So I thought that was very interesting point that you made. So thank you very much. I enjoyed listening to you today.
Yeah, great job, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.